So welcome to the viewers of Dataquest, and this time it gives me great privilege to present Raman Roy, who is affectionately known as the father of the BPO industry. And the occasion is that I would like to tell everyone that he has won the Dataquest 2023 Lifetime Achievement Award. So it's absolutely great to have you here, Mr. Roy.
Thank you very much, Sunil. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. So I think maybe we can jump straight to it because we'd like to hear your whole life's journey because it's a lifetime achievement award. So can you tell us about the early days of the Indian IT industry and also how you entered it? Because I'm curious, you had a chartered accountancy background. So one does not imagine. So really like to know what was going on at that point of
Yeah,
time.
so you're right. I'm an accountant by profession. And in fact, I'm all sorts of accountants there can be.
Right.
I spend a lot of time educating myself. If I put all my degrees, 33 letters follow my eight-letter
Wow.
name. I'm
Wow.
a chartered accountant, cost accountant, management accountant, company secretary, a whole lot of things
Right.
I did. And at that time, I did all that to be able to get a job.
Right.
Because during the time where I had finished graduations,
Yeah.
jobs were not easy to come by.
Right.
You only got jobs if your dad knew somebody, and my dad did not.
Okay.
And I thought that the way out was to educate myself and to be able to get into a job. If you met me in college, you would have met a guy with torn jeans, not torn jeans because they were fashionable at that time. They are fashionable now, but that time because I couldn't afford another pair of jeans. And I would have told you that my ambition is to work for a multinational, which is where it weaves into the story of what you're asking. So ultimately, I landed up working for American Express.
Right.
So it was a big time achievement for me to get into a multinational. And I was in finance. And I was the CFO for the Indian arm of the travel related services.
Right.
And I still remember one evening in the basement of Hindustan Times building.
Okay.
That is where our office was.
Yeah.
My then boss, we had walked down, we had come down the lift and we had walked into the parking area. He was going to his car and I was going to my YesD motorcycle to go back home. And he said, we are looking at launching the American Express card in India, and we have to start preparing for that. So yeah, you are in finance, but what we need is an operations guy to look after operations. And I told him, hey, you silly, you mad. I mean, I'm an accountant. So was he. Tony Singh, my boss then, he was an accountant. And he said, look, we think you're the right guy. And it's a big job. I would suggest you think about it. And he got into his car and left, and I got onto my bike and left. And I didn't want to stop being an accountant. I mean, that is what I was educated to be. But the opportunity I also understood was huge. So net, I took over operations for American Express. And I have launched the card looking after all the technology and everything to do with operations. And that allowed me to interact with a lot of international people. This was the first time that American Express took a local guy to launch their card, essentially because our market could not afford an expat. I mean, we were not going to be profitable for 4 5 years. Expat would have made the losses 3 times, 4 times. So they found a local. I was sent to Singapore and Australia and Hong Kong and Brighton and US for training. We did a lot of stuff. And net we launched the card, but that allowed me to interact with a lot of people and become a part of a card issuing community within American Express. That allowed me to be invited to some conferences and meetings where we all used to come and talk about the good things that happened and the not so good things. And India was a minuscule card issuer. We were what we did in 1 year, some of these countries did in 1 day. So the thing was to quietly sit and listen to what they were saying. And very soon I realized that the issues they were bringing out, we didn't have those issues because of the way we were handling things, because of the quality of the people we had in India and what we were able to train them. So few months after the issue at these quarterly meetings, I started raising up my hand and saying, "Excuse me, you have that problem, give it to me, I'll solve it." And I started approaching seniors. These meetings were attended by some very, very senior people. I mean, they could sneeze and I would lose my job. They were very senior, and I started approaching them and saying, "Why don't you give me a chance to do this in India and we could solve it?" So, few more quarters down, they got sick of me. They used to say, "Oh God, this Raman has come again. He will start talking of India. Please take him away." And I overheard it also, them saying, "Please take him away because he'll start talking of India. We want nothing to do." And then one of the guys, you know what it is with senior bosses, you want to find a way to impress them and do. One of the guys went to them and said, "I think I have a solution. This Raman is making a pain of himself. You know that Korean won reconciliation that we've not been able to do for 5 years? The auditors are qualifying the P&L because of that reconciliation. We've tried for 5 years, nobody can do it. Why don't you ask him to do that? He will fail and he will stop hassling you." The bosses thought it was a great idea. So when I walked in and I said, "Why don't you give it? Yeah, Raman, come here, come here, come here. Sit down. Forget about this. Let me tell you what you're going to do." So they gave me the Korean. So in Korean won, it was all in lakhs and millions of wons. They were all round figures. The reference numbers were garbled, and the knocking off of the bank reconciliation could not happen. And it was a big. There were a few million open items in the bank rec. So they said, "Go there and fix that." I said, "Oh, okay, great." So I took it. I bought it back, got all the data that we needed, put a team, if I recall correctly, of 5 or 6 people. There were 2, 3 chartered accountants in that. And lo and behold, in 6 weeks, we had it all fixed. So instead of going back and saying Raman will fail and he will stop hassling you, I got bragging rights to say, "Guys, who fixed the Korean won issue? We Indians did. Give me more work." But that rally was the turning point of at least American Express realizing that there was maybe something. Because, see, as a card issuing unit, we were so small, we were insignificant. But doing this, that having done the back office, having shown them what the capability was, that is where Amex decided to test out more things, which we did. And then Amex decided to invest and set up a back office in India. I got the privilege of leading that for American Express as the business leader for accounting operations. And we brought in the back office of 32 countries. All accounting, everything to do with accounting, all sorts of accounting, some complex, some complicated, some simple, vendor payables, receivables, everything. But that was the start of what is today lovingly called the BPO industry. It was only an effort to demonstrate to American Express that we Indians could do something better than others. While we were at that time, if I recall correctly, a couple of thousand people. When GE discovered by accident, I won't go into the details of the accident. I can give you some gory details of that accident that made GE discover what we were doing. But they got very excited with what we were doing. And I had the luxury of meeting Gary Wendt, who was then the CEO, chairman and CEO of GE Capital. And a 1 hour lunch that he invited me at Belvedere in the Oberoi, I still remember, ended up running for 4 hours because he had lots of questions. How do you do this? How do you train people? At that time, there were restrictions on import into the country. We couldn't get IBM. American Express had worked standard on IBM, and we had a lot of restrictions on how to be able to get the IBM equipment into India so that we could work on it. So he went through the gory details, and he was lounging at the end of the lunch, sitting one side of the table with his legs on another chair, and I was sitting there enjoying my dessert and coffee, and more coffee came, and more coffee came, and whatever. And then suddenly he turned around and looked at me and said, "So when are you joining us?" I said, "I'm not. I am here because you are Gary Wendt, and you are, no, you are the CEO of GE Capital. And I was told that you're very important, and GE Capital is very important, and I must share my learnings with you. I'm very happy with my job, and you know, I'm only here to share my experience." So he stood up and he said, "You don't know that, pal. You are joining us." And he walked out. And believe you me, my first reaction was, "साला बिल तो नहीं दे के गया, बिल मेरे को देना पड़ेगा क्या?" But again, Belvedere, you don't pay bills. You just walk out. And yeah, so few days later, they contacted me, and again, cut the long story short, I decided to become a part of GE Capital and set up what is Genpact today. So we did what we did for American Express, which is the back office. So as I said, the BPO industry was pioneered and born in American Express. We took that to GE, did what we did in accounting, and that is where in GE that we pioneered the call center piece. And it became a big hit. I mean, we were a multiple of what size American Express was. We grew. We did business across Europe, across US, multiple places. It was a resounding success, what we were able to create. And I think it is somewhere that time that, I think it was one of your sister publications that first called me the father of BPO industry, and that stuck. It was one of the articles that said this is what, and press got a lot of very excited because we were creating jobs. There was a lot of educated unemployed in the country, and we were catering to that, and staff got excited. I mean, when we gave out ads to recruit people, we had to call the cops to control the crowds. Because again, in India, people come with their friends or family or mother or father. And we realized that if we were running recruitment, we had to cater to them, and we had to, not because we were giving them food, but we had to allow people to come where they could buy food so that they could hang around there. They didn't want to leave their kids, or in our cafeteria, they'd come. There was a lot of learning on what it was, but we created jobs. And more importantly, what has been my passion throughout, we were able to demonstrate to the world what an Indian could do. If you ask me what is one thing that drove me to do it, because if I go into gory details of what it took to do some of the accounting work, what it took to do particularly the call center industry, you'd really, and all your viewers would burst into tears. It was, it wasn't easy. There were a lot of disbelievers. But we had faith and belief that if we gave the same training to the people as the overseas people got, we could demonstrate that they can do as good, if not a better job. And we have repeatedly demonstrated that Indians with same training can almost without exception do a better job than what their overseas counterparts can. So that happened, and yeah, then Amex was to prove that India could work. GE proved that it was scalable. We took it to multiple cities. We created a model where you could train people in multiple cities. And that time people came and said, yeah, so maybe you're doing this, and large companies can follow this model, but it can't be a third party model. That time Infosys and Wipro and Cognizant and TCS were doing a lot of IT work. Nobody was in BPO. And the thought was, hey, it can't be done as a business. We were stupid and we said, no, it can be. And that is where I quit GE and I set up Spectramind, which was the first third party uh, product uh, without a customer, without, well, funding. Yes, Chris Capital had been in touch. There were Ashish and his team, his co founder, they were recently out of Harvard. They were young, much younger than us though, but we related to that. We were able to talk to that, and they thought we could create something, and they were willing to fund us, and that's how Spectramind was born. I guess we had enough money to run for 18 to 24 months, which was my requirement that I want enough money in the bank for 18 months. All efforts of people to tell me कि थोड़ा अभी ले लो, थोड़ा valuation बढ़ जाएगा, you will dilute less. I wanted to hear nothing of it. I was stupid. Today I'd never do it like that. But yeah, we took the money. We got a first customer and a second customer, and soon enough we were the largest back office in the country. We had greater than 10,000 people. Somewhere along the line, Wipro came along. We were looking for investment because this is a very investment hungry business. You need to put in seats, you need to put in computers, you need to do everything. So you need money as you grow. And while we were looking for investment, Wipro came along. We thought it was a good idea to give them a minority stake because they had deep pockets and they said they'll introduce us to customers and all those good things. Few months later, Wipro came back and spoke to our investors to buy them out to make it 100% subsidiary. And yeah, in the bargain, we also made a little bit of money. We decided to go with the deal, and Spectramind became what is Wipro BPO. I personally committed to Mr. Premji that I will stay for 2 to 3 years because he said your business is very different. They wanted to put it in the contract. I said, if you put it there, I won't sign it. Well, he said, okay, you're a gentleman. Let's have a gentleman's handshake. And based on that, I committed and I stayed for the period that I committed. And when I left, I started Quattro, which comes from the Latin word fourth. So Amex, GE, Spectrumine and Quattro, we set up. In Quattro, we set up a different model. Each one of our business lines we created as a subsidiary so that we didn't have to close down one company or do another thing. So we did 6 business lines, 5 of which we have as of today divested, and the sixth business line is still there. So that brings you from the time we started as an accident of moving from accounting to operations to where we are today.
So I think that's a bit of serendipity, and like all great stories, I think that is how they begin. Nobody knows where an accident happens. So it's
Absolutely.
pretty fascinating. I mean, not still, despite the BPO industry being so huge, multi-billion dollars, not many people know it began like this. So
No,
I'm
not many
really,
people know it began like this. Not many people know it was an accident.
yes,
Not many people know that if I was not told that you Indians can't do this,
right,
it would never have happened. It was all my belief to say, ये साला क्या बोल रहा है इसको दिखाना है कि हम कर सकते हैं.
right, right.
So that is what made the industry happen. Now, today, a lot of things, if you even look at some things that are taken as standard, like
Mhm.
transportation at night.
Right,
When we had to do 24 by 7, only hotels and airlines did 24 by 7. And we had to get staff by the last bus, and they left in the morning. So we set out places for them to sleep or to play carom or to play TT till the buses started. And then we discovered that that place was becoming so large because there were so many people where we said, okay, let's transport them. And I still remember when we gave out an RFP for getting 6 Qualis vehicles with drivers. I remember one of the transporters coming to my office without an appointment, without anything. He walked in, came into my office, closed the door, Haryanvi. Coming from there, he put his hand on our desk and said, बीवी के गहने गिरवी रख रहा हूं गाड़ी लेने को. अगर ठीक नहीं किया तुमने तो तुम्हारे लिए ठीक नहीं होगा. And he turned around and walked out. Today he's the one of the largest operators in the country for these vehicles. जो 6 गाड़ी के लिए बीवी के गहने रखे थे उसने.
so
So we created a lot of jobs. We created, my most fascinating moments. People ask me, so what? No, standing before it was PVRs and before it was this standing at Priya Cinema where you book the tickets and you have to still go and physically pick up the tickets. So standing in that line with my daughter, who was she's in her mid 20s now, when she must have been 4 or 5 years old, standing with her in the line to pick up the ticket, and somebody comes and pats you on the shoulder. You look around, say, yeah. He says, but are you Raman Roy? Yes. I wanted to shake you by the hand. I owe my job to you. I know everything. He shakes hand and he goes. My
wow,
daughter's looking. Who was that? I said, I don't know. But you don't know. He came and shook your hand. What do you mean you don't know? I mean, there can be what we've done, the stories that kids have come and told me of coming from smaller towns and cities, how they've made their living out of this industry. It's very heartwarming and fascinating.
yeah. So I think like that's what the BPO industry has totally transformed India. And it's one of the larger, it's part of the IT industry. And also you are also influential with NASCOM. So maybe you can
Let
speak
me tell
about your,
you, it's part of there is a story behind it being part of the IT industry.
yeah, so
IT industry at one point of time was there was a slowdown. The rate of growth was slowing down.
right,
It was still growing. It was not degrowth.
yeah,
It was the rate of growth was slowing down. And clever people in NASSCOM and some of the larger companies decided to add the revenue of BPO companies so that the
Yeah.
rate of growth looked pretty.
Yeah.
Again, some smart people said BPO should be included. We were IT enabled services, we were not
Yeah.
IT. And because NASSCOM started including the data, it became a part of IT and we became a part. I was nominated to the NASSCOM Executive Committee
Hmm.
for the first time that I became a member. After that, of course, I stood in elections and was a part of the Executive Committee for many, many years, including being a chairman of NASSCOM.
Right. So actually, this is quite interesting. So, like you said, India went from cards like what we did in a year, people did in some countries did in one day. From that, I mean, we have come. If I look at 2024, now the past, it's been a great journey. You have talked about it, but now if you look at the future, a lot of people are gung-ho about the future. Like now, India can actually become an economic tech power. It can become a
Without doubt,
yeah,
without doubt.
yeah,
But we need some basic fundamental changes.
yeah. I would really like
Today
to know. Yeah,
we are a superpower as a servicer.
right,
There is nobody who can do better servicing of creating software, of designing software, or delivering on time, doing mega projects at multi locations, multi country, multi. Nobody can match India. But that is as a service provider. We have not really launched products.
right.
And that is where we need. And again, let me give you an example. Google was incubated in a campus. From what I've read, a professor who motivated the Google founders to go create a company and do something and actually put in $50,000 made billions of dollars of that $50,000 that he put. You overlay that to India, an IIT professor cannot invest in a company. An Indian Institute of Science professor cannot invest in a company. Not only that, if you are a company that is registered as a startup with DPIIT, you cannot give ESOPs to that professor. You cannot, I mean, you want to be a superpower, some of the basics need to be corrected. Yes, can it be misused? Yes, it can be misused. But then let's ring fence what can be misused about it. I'm a founder of the Indian Angel Network. We have more than 200 companies that we've invested in. I personally invested in more than 120 companies. Every year, every year, I answer a dozen queries from the income tax department. You know what the query is? You invested in this company, give your PAN number. Yeah, I give you the PAN number. Send 4 years tax returns, send the bank statement. Hey, you're the income tax department. You have my PAN number. I submitted the returns to you. If I did not submit returns and you come back and say, hey, hold on, where is the return for 2017-18? That would be a valid query. But once you have the PAN number, you have all the information. But no, they need me to submit each one of the things all over again. Not only me, if I have 40 other investors in that company, they need all 40 to give that. Where? We want to be, and our Honorable Prime Minister talks about being a startup capital. I am very supportive as a part. I've done 4 startups myself. I've invested in 100 of them. I want India to be the startup capital. But when a foreign investor, angel investor, wants to put in money in an Indian company, We make that poor guy go round the bend. How can we be a global superpower, a global startup capital, where we don't allow non-Indians to invest in Indian companies? Where today, you know what one of the investors told me, LRS, liberalized remittance scheme. Okay. He says it's a misnomer that this is liberalized, because if an angel investor wants to invest in a non-Indian company that happens to be, say, in fintech, man, it is impossible. I'd invested in a company, part of IAN. They did a rights issue. $1,850 I had to pay for the rights issue. 4 months I went around submitting 200 and some pages, each individually tested and signed, and I did not get approval. $1,850. And somebody said, अरे तेरी बेटी यूएस में है ना, उसको बोल 18,50 डाल दे, खत्म करे. No, that is illegal. I cannot have somebody, the law says I must submit from India. So, yes, we can become a superpower. We can beat the shit out of a lot of people purely because of the talent and the capabilities that we have out of this country, our ability to leverage technology like nobody knows how to. But we have to change our laws with that objective. We have to interact with the industry to be able to pick up what is required and where we want to take it.
I think that's a very valid point you're making. We have everything, but let's hope we can. I
No,
think,
because we have to, and it's not, my only suggestion, request, prayer is that we work with the industry to set up the regulation and laws. I love the bureaucrats. They understand a lot of which way the country runs, but they do not understand the startup industry.
yeah.
They do not understand what it takes to set up a startup. They do not understand the gains and the pains. And it is that collaboration that will make India a superpower.
So quite it was a fascinating journey, and also very much food for thought at the end of the discussion, because I believe that Indian startups are doing great. They can conquer the world, but yeah, if they have barriers in front of them, then I think it's going to be very tough.
It is very tough. Today, you
Yeah,
meet startup entrepreneurs, you
yeah,
meet them,
yeah,
what all they have to do for getting investment, getting overseas, paying royalty for things, getting royalty for things,
yeah.
everything. A dollar inward remittance is a problem. So don't get me wrong. I know how it can be misused.
Right.
Okay. But rather than banning it, there are other ways. That is where the collaboration is required to say, okay, if it is misused, what is it that I can find a way that it is misused?
Okay. So then finally, just last thoughts. Are you optimistic that we can overcome all these barriers?
I am so optimistic that my elder daughter is doing a tech MBA,
Okay.
because that is the future
Yeah.
out of India.
Yeah. So great. Then even I'm convinced that it's great future lies ahead,
Yeah, but
especially with,
see,
yeah,
there is a lot of hard work.
a
There
lot
is
of
a
hard work. Yeah.
so I think again, an average Indian is used to hard work.
Yeah.
So there's some political things that are happening to say, does a Indian work as hard as an American or not?
Right.
Forget the politics side of it.
Yeah.
Average Indian is capable of a lot of hard work. He or she is capable of a lot of intellectual work, a lot of heavy lifting, so to speak.
Yeah.
But we have to support him or her with what is needed. And some of the things in startup, the government has to understand. हमें भी नहीं पता है कि क्या चाहिए. स्टार्टअप इसीलिए तो है
Right.
क्योंकि आगे जाके क्या आएगा मार्केट में, व्हाट विल हैपन, वी डोंट नो. वी हैव टू jointly figure out and find out
Yeah.
what it is that is required to be done. So we need to be able to collaborate and work with each other on that.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So anyway, thank you for your views, and let's hope we can watch another new era unfold in front of us.
I am very hopeful.
Yeah.